Yo, what is going on, and welcome to another episode of the Urban Pitch Podcast, the beautiful game of life, part of the Believe Network. I'm Ramsey Abushala, editor of UrbanPitch.com. Julio Monterosa, executive director of Vibes. What's going on, Julio?
Nothing much, man. It's been a long week and a lot of soccer. LAFC made it to the World Cup, so we're happy on this side.
Yeah, it's a lot of. It was a very busy soccer weekend. We still have more to go. We're recording this on a Sunday, so the weekend recording means that we can kind of get into some of the stuff that happens in the weekend. We usually do weekday recording, so we're not able to comment on that. But to help us with that recap, that coverage of all the from Champions League to the Club World Cup play-in and everything in between, we have a very special guest coming to us. If you follow soccer in North America, you know who this guy is. Whether you came across his tweets, some of his writing, he's writing for outlets like SBI Soccer, Sports Illustrated. He's got the Footwork magazine going. Favian Renkel is here in person in the flesh. Also, one of the newest, most importantly probably, the newest contributor to the Urban Pitch staff. Favian, what's going on, man?
Hey, how's it going? Thank you for having me on. Man, you make me blush, you know. I'll get all red over here. No, but thank you. It's a pleasure. It's a blessing. What you guys do here on the Urban Pitch podcast is so awesome. You guys do a great job with all your player interviews, the week-to-week podcast. It's truly a great watch. So you guys do a great job, and I want to thank you guys for having me on.
Yeah, and welcome to the Urban Pitch team, man.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Favian dropped his first article on Urban Pitch earlier this week. Go check that out if you haven't. But go press pause, read it real quick. He did a Lautaro Martinez FIFA Club World Cup interview, but he's in town here in LA for the Club World Cup playing between LAFC and Club America last night. Just an absolutely bonkers finish, finish. I think the first 65, 70 minutes were, kind of touch and go there. But let's talk about that before we get into your background, because this is fresh on our minds. And I think that I had a lot of thoughts about not just the game, but the opportunity for both teams moving forward into the Club World Cup. But you were there. We didn't get a chance to get to the stadium. But what was the atmosphere like, and what were your overall thoughts of that game? Yeah,
honestly, I was a little worried going into it because it was being played at BMO Stadium. There was a lot of noise saying that this would be an unfair advantage for LAFC and how they couldn't find a neutral site, how it was going to be a big deal. But when you walked in, it was about 60 to 70% America. So that was not an issue. Both fan bases showed up. I think this is the first time I've ever seen, and I love the 32-52, but I've ever seen them a little timid at the start of the game. America's supporters section and supporters all around the stadium were really loud. But they started singing songs that maybe LAFC fans in the 32-52 recognize, like "Esta noche vamos a ganar," and then the whole stadium singing it, right? And then they're just either it's America or it's LAFC. But it's pretty funny that it was almost like a joint chant at that point, right? But it was a great atmosphere. At the end of the game, the 32-52 really popped off and really showed that they're the king of supporters groups in MLS, and showed that LAFC is a force to be reckoned on and off the pitch. So it was a great atmosphere. I'm about to call it the Bawanga legacy game, because that in reality it really is, especially in a week where Vela announces a retirement. This is the new era for LAFC, and they're starting off on the right foot. Yeah, and from the fan perspective, that's the first time I'm pretty sure, at least that I've seen the supporter, like a dual supporter section in an MLS stadium.
The south end and the north end were filled up.
Yeah, and that was really cool to see, like the flags and the flare. At the beginning of the game, you couldn't even watch. You couldn't even see what was going on because it was so smoky from the flares on both sides. The chants were back and forth. You couldn't tell really who was chanting because But then once LAFC took the lead at the end, or at least equalized, then you really started to hear a more of a one-sided
but America's fans were packed out the stadium basically. Yeah. So if just from looking from the TV, you can see they were in the south end, going all around towards the only black and gold I really saw was 32-52. Other than that was all America, which was crazy.
And then you had LAFC players having to dodge bottles and cups being thrown. Like I'm sure they've never had
at
that
their own
before.
Home.
At their own home stadium. Like it's a wild, very unique setting for a game, for a very unique game. Yeah. I think after the game, I was watching on TV. I didn't agree with it, but one of the announcers said it was the biggest win in LAFC history. Not sure, maybe from a financial perspective, $10 million bonus. They're billing it as the $10 million game.
Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Money in the bank.
Yeah. But very high stakes, and you could tell by the way the fans reacted, by the way the players reacted, by the way that the big players kind of showed up in those big moments. I think that them taking this game very seriously is a good step for the Club World Cup, because that's one thing that a lot of people, including myself, are a little bit cynical of is, another tournament, another summer thing that's thrust upon us where who knows if the players are going to want it. But from this game itself, I think it did show that the intensity will be there, at least from the North American teams.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, the tournament before the past itinerations of the Club World Cup, in my opinion, South Americans and North Americans definitely care about this, because I grew up, with a Peruvian family that would always reference how Paulo Guerrero and Corinthians beat Chelsea, so it means a lot to the people on this side of the world. Maybe not so much to the Europeans because they believe they're the top dog, but in my opinion, I think this is going to be a great showing, and last night showed that the North American teams want it, like you were saying. And man, I mean, I've never seen anything like it, where you obviously see the pressure of this, and then a team celebrating like a trophy, and then there's no trophy, right? And then they're all with the banner that says qualified, and it's like, all right, well, what are we lifting up, right? But no, it was fun to see. And I'm almost thinking man, I was there when in the 2023 CONCACAF Champions Cup final, where LAFC lost, and I'm like, I mean, maybe they should have brought that trophy, just gave it to LAFC at this point now. No, but it's just funny because it's like they rewrote their own wrongs, but it's like they're not going to have that trophy in the cabinet. So it's almost like you should put something there now.
Right. Honestly. Yeah. But this gives you a great little preview of what's to come. Going back to what you were saying, I have an uncle, he's Salvadorian, but he's the biggest Boca Juniors guy. So he still talks about that Riquelme, cuando Riquelme bailó Real Madrid, so that 2-1 win in the World Cup against Real Madrid when Boca won. So that intensity is going to be times 10. The teams out of MLS are going to bring it, and I believe most of the fan bases in MLS have not really been exposed to some of these fans have been doing it for hundreds of years.
Right.
So this is going to be a good segue on growing the game on this side.
Yeah. I think for sure I'm very excited for the Brazilian teams, all these South American teams. River Plate's coming to LA, so being able to see those fans in action out here, whether they're River Plate fans in LA or traveling from Buenos Aires or from all around the world, to watch their team play, the display of support and passion is that's what I'm looking forward to, almost more so than the actual matches on the pitch. But back to the LAFC stuff, because I think you mentioned the Denny Buanga statement match, or the legacy game. I think for the most part, his legacy has been cemented, and he's one of the best players to grace LAFC, or even you could say MLS too, in the last few years for sure. No. But incredibly dynamic and always seems to show up in big moments. What do you think about his overall impact, not just with LAFC but across MLS history in general? Yeah,
look, I mean, the guy, Golden Boot winner, had the craziest season in terms of goal contributions and in goals. Has definitely been one of the best players in the region, in my opinion, in the last 3 years. He was up there with goals scored on the year with Ronaldo at Al Nassr. So it was something like, wait, what's going on with Buanga and LAFC? He doesn't get the fanfare. And honestly, this is my biggest gripe about soccer in the United States, and this is going to be something that is probably very controversial, but I think there's a big East Coast bias. I think Denny Buanga doesn't get the flowers he deserves, because this may be because the games are too late for the East Coast, but I don't think people recognize how talented he is, because not a lot of people on the East Coast possibly watch LAFC in these type of games. For example, Carlos Vela not being on the Mount Rushmore of MLS also has to do with that, in my opinion. Because people were bringing up Giovinco, which is a player that was phenomenal. That was the first player when I was a kid that I saw in San Jose and say, whoa, this guy's a different level than everybody else. But Carlos Vela. Another thing I think is the East Coast bias with that too. So with Bouanga's legacy in MLS, I think he's been, again, the most phenomenal player outside of maybe Cucho Hernandez and Lionel Messi in the last 3 years. And I would even say it's a toss up with him and Cucho, right? And then you're talking about the greatest player of all time, so it's like it's almost he has to be there. But yeah, Bouanga has been phenomenal, and I would say as of right now, he's probably the best player from the two regions in that Club World Cup. So maybe Messi turns it on, and he has been in the last 2 games. He has a whole bunch of goal contributions. But yeah, Bouanga's going in there with confidence. And last night he took on like 3 America defenders at once, and I was like,
multiple times. There were multiple times where he was kind of scissoring through like 2-3 guys like there was nothing, And
I was like shocked. I was like, wait, this is America we're playing? Like what's going on here? These defenders look like they're. I hate to say it, Colorado Rapids, it's just like,
hey, come on now.
All right, but I'm just saying, like FC Dallas, so it's just like, I was like, this is, San Jose Earthquakes, so I was saying, this is different. This is Denis knowing that this is a legacy game for him with the rumors that he might possibly leave. This game showed everybody in the stadium and everybody in the country basically that he can ride off on the sunset and will always be known as an LAFC legend.
Yeah, Bouanga played great, but one thing that LAFC had going for them yesterday, 2 World Cup winners showed out. Giroud, we've been criticizing this game most of the season, but he came and played yesterday.
Right.
Lloris had a lot of great saves. So even though it wasn't a Club World Cup they won a World Cup, and you can tell why they won it.
Yeah.
So they helped. If it wasn't for them, Lloris had hella stops, especially in crunch time where I thought America was going to take the game 2-1. But he showed out and balled out.
If I had to say this, if that was your first LAFC game ever, you would never know Giroud has been not good for them.
Awful.
And that's why it's like, man, it's almost like he understood the value of that game, understood the hype behind it, understood that he's going to go play for a Club World Cup while plenty of players in the world aren't going to have the chance to.
Yeah.
And it was crazy to see. I was like, even in the press box, I was like, well, man, Giroud looks like he wants it today.
Yeah, he balled out.
And I was like, that doesn't seem very common,
Yeah. I think the intensity that that games like that command, as much as you want to think that they're showing up for every MLS game, like it's like a do or die scenario that they're giving 100%. Once you raise the stakes, if the stakes are higher, you always see a little bit more X factor, or I don't know what it is, like stuff that you can't really quantify with stats, or just like, and the certain players that have been in stages like that,
right?
It helps out to have those guys because they obviously know what it's like to play on an even bigger stage or in front of even more fans or in louder stadiums. So getting veteran guys like that is good to build runs in tournaments like this where the lights might be a little bit brighter, the stakes might be a little bit higher. But I do think that it was nice to see Giroud kind of show up because I was watching it with my buddy who's kind of getting into soccer a little bit, and I was mentioning, oh yeah, that guy played for Arsenal. He's a big Chelsea guy, and he was France World Cup winner. And he goes, oh yeah, dude, that guy looks like he's like his stature, the way he carries himself, all that stuff. But he's been getting all types of flack since he's signed with the team. So it's great to see these players step up in moments like this for sure.
I don't think he's been getting the balls that he's been used to.
Sure.
They want him to run through space. I don't think Giroud ever played like that.
Yeah.
Give him the ball and give him 2 fast wingers, what we have.
Yeah.
So it's crazy that play his feet and let the wingers do what the wingers are going to do.
Yeah.
But I feel like he just hasn't been getting. He hasn't been getting the way we thought he was going to be used. He hasn't been used.
Yeah.
But yesterday he was. I was like, who is this guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do want to go back to, because I think this was very interesting what you were saying about the East Coast bias. And I think across sports in the U.S., there does happen to be an East Coast bias. I know in college rankings, a lot of the West Coast teams will kind of get shut out, or college football, they think the West Coast teams are whatever soft and all this and that. And whether that's true or not, there does tend to be East Coast bias, obviously with New York City being on the East Coast and that kind of being the center of everything. But For MLS, I think it's an interesting point that you bring up, because when you think about like the most successful franchises throughout MLS history, obviously you have the Galaxy, and then you have like Seattle Sounders, who are like, in recent years, only team to win this iteration of the Champions Cup. The players that they've developed, the kind of guys that have that have played there, like Lodiero and all like Rui Diaz, and like all these like the West Coast teams. Like when you think of the most successful, like DC United had a run early in MLS, sure. New York Red Bulls haven't really done much in the league. Atlanta United had like a brief run when they were first starting. But I think when you think of the most successful franchises in MLS history, like you have to think of the West Coast, like producing those.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're 100% right. But look how much they cover those teams, even though they aren't successful teams. Look how much media is independent, or with MLS pundits or Apple TV, how much they talk about those teams. It might be a certain bias due to Apple TV having Bradley Wright Phillips and Sacha Kljestan, who have been big Red Bull players in the past, right? That might skew it a bit. Dax McCarty being a big Red Bulls guy too, and MLS headquarters being in New York. They used to have something in San Francisco, which a lot of people don't know, when I felt like the Quakes were a little bit more talked about, So, but seeing just constant fanfare for things on the East Coast has actually been a big career thing for me, because I feel like I'm one of there's a lot of good reporters on the West Coast as well, but I feel like I'm way more in your face about the actual things that are happening on the West Coast than I feel like a lot of other reporters are. And talking about that, Carlos Vela on the Mount Rushmore of MLS is a prime example of it, where you have this West Coast based reporter, bringing up a question that for some in LA, half of LA, think that, of course, like, what are we talking about here? Carlos Vela was one of the biggest superstars in the league, had a rival, a villain, and still beat him out. And that villain was across town. So it's just like, in my eyes, to be on a Mount Rushmore, you have to, one, have the stats to back it up, and one, have that swagger to back it up. And I think Carlos Vela, to me, in that season alone, really brought the world to watch MLS, because they wanted to know Zlatan versus Vela, and Zlatan losing, because that was a villain in the world of football at the time, and he was still talking. And going back to the East Coast bias, I haven't seen that type of media fanfare for anything on the West Coast since then. So I do think that at the moment there is an East Coast bias, but it might be because of Miami. It might be because of New York, where MLS is stationed. And I think if you're a European person, you're going to watch the East Coast games because they're earlier in the day. And that's the biggest gripe about Apple TV. I personally am a big fan of how the production's been going, but the games are a little too late for the rest of the world. So it's just an interesting thought process. And also this, you don't see as much as the East Coast bias in NFL or in basketball, because those games, they're already the marquee matchup for sports in the whole entire week. Lakers play the Warriors. Everybody's watching it. Everyone's staying up late to watch it because it's Warriors and Lakers, right? You got Steph Curry, LeBron James. But in terms of a sport or a league that's not number one in the world, you need to sell the game a bit more. And I just feel like the trend over the past couple of years, when Bouanga's been becoming the superstar in the league, it's hard to sell someone an LAFC San Jose game when it's at 10:30 at night. And in my eyes, I'm like, whoa, boom. Christian Espinoza, Denny Bouanga, two very underrated players, fast wingers, assists, goals. It's going to be a fun night. Mexican heritage in San Jose, it's going to be a fun night. But an East Coast person, they're not going to possibly tune in for that. So in my eyes, with this Sunday Night Soccer, with games coming on earlier, maybe that's going to make the trend to be not so much East Coast, in my opinion.
Going back to your villain, Zlatan was not only like a good villain to have, but when he left MLS, he still went to Italy and won cups.
So and he was leading AC Milan in scoring too.
And it ain't like it was just some bum that guy was talking. No, Vela beat a still really skilled Zlatan. So
that was a great era for the league, where he was doing a lot of interviews. He did the whole Fiat Ferrari thing. How old is he? Where was I when I was 28? Where is he when he's 28? You know what I mean? That stuff was so good for the league. I understand why he left. He came to MLS because he felt like there was stuff that he needed to prove to the world, because the world kind of wrote him off when he got hurt in Manchester, and then nobody really wanted him. He was rehabbing a pretty serious injury at a higher age. Comes to MLS, kind of takes the league by storm. Has
a debut.
Two or three seasons.
I want to say two and a half.
Yeah,
halfway.
Yeah.
So the debut he had, scoring the goals against LAFC, like rival. Like,
you couldn't write a better story than that. And then for him to kind of like prove his point, I've always said that it was a testament to the league that it can be a place for guys that still, like a Gio Reyna, like it's not a one-to-one comparison, but someone like Gio Reyna who's maybe starting to become written off. He's still very young, a lot of injury-prone seasons, hasn't found his footing in the last few years, can come to MLS. A lot of people are like, forget that. He needs to stay in Europe as long as he can. Maybe not for like the long term, 1 or 2 seasons, get some momentum, get some confidence, build some, some health, fitness, whatever, and then you can make your way back into Europe. Because Zlatan obviously has a bigger name, he's a bigger draw, has ties to Milan, so it's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's something that could be considered. Then that's something that I've thought. I
want to say this, and this is a crazy take, but I think because Zlatan came to MLS, it made him as a more famous as a person. I think Zlatan, what he embodied, was in the forefront of news in the U.S. soccer or U.S. sports media circus because of what he did here in L.A. If he went from PSG to AC Milan and he just kept doing what he was doing in Europe, I don't think he was going to be completely what he is today. Him being a character in Ted Lasso, a show made for Americans that don't know soccer, literally just proves to me that what he came and you know what they do on the first thing, he scores a half field shot, right? Or a half court shot, and that's something he did in LA, right? So it added more to his lore, and it was actually, I would want to say this, his move to LA, like you were saying earlier, probably helped his career less than made it worse, or a retirement league or whatever, and then he went back to Europe and did everything. With Gio Reyna, I just think he needs to just accept the villain role. I mean, he's becoming that. All the media circus, the USMNT fans, turning their back against him because it seems like he's unmotivated, and just become that villain and just prove everybody wrong on the pitch.
Yeah, so. I think he comes from royalty, from U.S. royalty.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
And the thing with him, it just looks like he's more like, hey, look who my dad is.
Right.
Let me in the door. And without really accomplishing anything, like he's been that golden boy for 7 years now. Like now, like you're at the age where you're a man. Like you're not a boy no more, and you still haven't. All you have behind your name is potential. Nothing other than that.
Yeah.
Because he has not proved anything.
He had, I think, one good year with Dortmund where he was. I think he might.
Or with the national team. I don't think he's had one good goal that I can remember.
The one against Mexico.
Against Mexico.
Yeah.
Other than that, like he's been talked about, hyped about, but hasn't really proved anything.
Yeah, it's time for him to get that confidence back and like you said, like embrace some sort of image that's not what it currently is right now. Yeah.
Well, and actually, I want to say that to the whole United States men's national team. They've been the golden goose or the golden boy for how long?
Golden generation. You can't call it.
So it's back.
And it's crazy because like Pulisic, I mean, the guy's doing great things in Europe, but do something for the USA team. And I think some people think he's done enough for USA, but again, he's not going to be remembered as a Donovan, in my opinion. He's not going to be remembered as a Dempsey, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because as of right now, he hasn't done enough with the USMNT to declare that he is I think LeBron James of soccer probably ruined it a bit for him. or the Captain America, labeling Captain America, probably put too much on him.
At the same time, though,
and now he's not even showing up for a Gold Cup. So I don't know.
Yeah. At the same time, he's really only had the 2022 World Cup to make that moment, because, to be honest, like from a U.S. soccer, like, or at least I think the average American sports fan, they know who Landon Donovan is. They knew who Clint Dempsey is because of what they did in World Cups. He's only played in one World Cup so far, and the stuff in between, like the Copa America is very important, Nations League, Gold Cup, all that stuff is important for soccer fans like us, but for him to get that kind of like gold star status like Tim Howard or some of the other guys that played before him, he needs to do stuff at the World Cup, and there just hasn't been enough. Like they missed 2018, which can't change that anymore. But maybe he'll have one, maybe two more chances at a World Cup to kind of build that legacy. I think that still has. There's a lot of meat left to chew off that bone. He did have that goal he scored against Iran. Like to me, that's a massive U.S. soccer moment. But I do think that there is still a lot for him in terms of legacy or whatever you want to call that to prove. Even though he's done, he's won a Champions League, he's tearing up the Serie A with AC
what
Milan.
is a Champions League to a normal American, right?
Yeah,
what
exactly. That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying. For a normie, whatever you want to call him, the average American soccer or sports fan, I should say, it's the World Cup. The World Cup is when, like we were talking about this a little bit before, it's like when you can go up to any sports fan or like go to a sports bar and strike up a conversation with a guy who might not watch soccer and still like have a conversation about the World Cup, about certain players, like who's playing where, or what does this guy play, or is Zlatan still playing, or like stuff like that.
Yeah. What's the craziest thing about it is, I don't know if it's a nostalgia kind of thing, glasses I have on, but when Dempsey and Donovan played in those games, they looked like a level above. And when I see Christian Pulisic play in the Copa America and he's having a hard time against Bolivia, it's completely different. For some weird reason, I always saw Clint Dempsey as, this guy's a monster. Yeah. He's making these teams like Portugal just sweat, So it almost is like when he's called on the most, Christian Pulisic, when it's not Mexico, doesn't show up. Yeah. And it's something where it's like, man, big game players become legends because of their ability to hit that next level when it matters the most. I don't think he's hit that just yet.
Yeah. He's missing a big moment. Everybody remembers that Donovan goal against Algeria.
Right.
Like the Iran
Portugal performance, the Portugal performance of Dempsey. You remember all these things. Like he's had, like you said, against Mexico, but like gave us a big performance in one of the, like in the World Cup where we were like, if he would have scored a goal,
even a Copa America, like Copa America Centenario was a big failure for the U.S. Huge failure.
Yeah, that was a big missed opportunity. But to me now, the conversation that's been had around Pulisic in the Gold Cup, like I see what people are saying with his commitment to the team because of the baggage that comes with him and the U.S. men's national team and the U.S. men's national team as a whole. There's a lot of baggage that comes with this certain team, the expectations that have been thrust upon them, the different coaching stuff, the different scandals or whatever. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't really have to do anything with soccer that gets put onto this team. And now with him kind of pulling out of the last competitive tournament before the World Cup, it does warrant some criticism. However, this is a guy, like, he played a lot. He's coming off of a very busy season. Next year, they're not. I don't think they're in any European competition.
But he played in the last game for AC Milan. That meant nothing. Mm-hmm. So my whole thing is, I want to see a player that just bleeds for the country. You know, like all the things you could say about Alexi Lalas as a pundit, but when he was a player, you would see that orange hair just flowing majestically, like punching guys or, being a brute in the middle of the field. And I think that's what this U.S. team misses. Mm-hmm. They're not gritty anymore because of their European
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but that doesn't have to do with Pulisic being like, okay, look, this is the Gold Cup. The Gold Cup has not been important since they brought in Nations League.
Yeah, I don't want to see Pulisic jumping kicks from El Salvador, to be completely honest.
But I
don't want to see that. I know how my people play.
But I personally want to see him score 6 goals against El Salvador.
No.
I'm sorry. But I want that to happen because that is a moment where like, whoa, Pulisic just scored 6 goals against El Salvador. I'm confident as an American fan or a U.S. fan that he can do it against Iran, right?
Mm-hmm. But what if he gets hurt? Like even when Inter Miami went to El Salvador, they had their new Argentinian signing. I think he was like 21 years, 22 years old. And tore his ACL. He tore his ACL. Messi, Sereno was freaking 2 feet tackled and broke. Messi. So I don't want to see that from my big players. Like save them for bigger games, which it doesn't mean anything, but
At the same time, this is like if he's not ready to play, he's not ready to play. I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I truly do want to give him the benefit of the doubt there. I don't know if you guys saw Eric Ronaldo was talking about this on the Unleashed, right? Like, take your time, do all this. He was saying some stuff that I didn't necessarily agree with, being like, you have to. It's the fans' job to support the players, and basically you shut the f up if you're disagreeing with them. If you never played at that level, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't really agree with that, but I did agree with sometimes you do need a break. You do need a break. The season's long. The congestion, the schedule congestion is incredible. Like now even with the Club World Cup, there's a lot of soccer on the board, and for this tournament to be like kind of like a kind of tweener tournament where it's like it kind of matters, but like if you were to explain the Gold Cup to someone that doesn't know what the Gold Cup is, like how would you just like? Technically, it should be the highest. Personally, it should be the highest continental tournament.
Personally,
in the
it's
US.
the Copa America of the U.S.
Exactly. So that's what it is. But it's
right?
not though. It's not though because you got teams like no Copa America roster would send like their kind of B or C list rosters,
which is you have a chance to win it all. Like Mexico, Mexico, the U.S. They send that C, B roster. They still 90% of the time going to win it.
But if I'm Canada, I'm throwing an A team out there and I'm running ship. Because as of right now, Canada did the Copa America.
Yeah.
Like they are the top dog and they are respecting every single tournament. And this is why, and I think people look at Canada and say, look at their roster. It's not as good as ours, but they're still doing it. They're still respecting it. They're still excited to wear that shirt. They're not even the most popular sport in that country. But they're still doing it better than the U.S.
But then when Alphonso Davies gets hurt, then it's like then there's a big deal.
But then Schaffelberg becomes a star, right? Then
Capo
shows up out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the USMNT, it's like they're lacking that sort of affinity for the badge. And man, I think missing the 2018 World Cup really messed up this generation and messed up the fan base because in South America, if Uruguay was playing in let's say a tournament like this, and then Cavani said, "No, I'm not playing," you know how much it would be ridiculed. Like, are you serious?
I think so. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying that him pulling out. It warrants criticism. It warrants like questions about his commitment to the team. Me personally, like I said, okay, fine. Like if this was a more important tournament, then I would be a little bit more critical about it, but. If you feel like if your priorities are with your club team and doing all that, okay.
Like excuse my language, but is our players turning into Eurostars on the spot? Like what? Like are we serious?
But would you guys get more mad if you would have came to the camp and been like, you know what, guys, I'm fatigued, can't do it?
No, he should be playing at least as a sub. Like what's going on?
In a perfect world, I agree with you, but. He's already had kind of an injury or a history of
the whole national team. I don't think nobody's been 100% right.
Yeah.
And this is why you see people falling for the love of Diego Luna right now, though.
Yeah.
That's what they want to see from the USMNT.
I agree. Yeah.
And that's why he is the guy. I even saw a tweet saying, "Fine, we don't need him. We'll go with this guy," and it shows the pictures with the bloody nose.
Yeah.
Right. And that's the grit that Americans. And it's just I hate to make this like too broad, but Americans love that grit. They love that passion. That's what makes Americans, right? Sure. Where you show up in the middle of Japan, but you're American, and I'm going to show it. And that's what people want to see from the national team. And personally, I know we're going a lot on this, but I think Pulisic is falling out of favor with the fan base because he's not showing that grit. Yeah. And he's never shown it, to be honest. Maybe once against Mexico when he was shushing the crowd in that photo. But besides that, he hasn't done enough where he warrants that Captain America or the LeBron James soccer.
I don't think we have a player right now in the national team that he's the one getting in people's faces.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So I agree with I'm not disagreeing with you, but could it be that we're asking too much from one player? Like, does it need to be this one guy that needs to be everything? He needs to be the de facto leader on the pitch. He needs to be the de facto leader off the pitch. He needs to be the guy doing stuff with the club team. He needs to be getting into people's faces. He needs to be scoring goals. I get that when you're the guy, the expectations, the spotlight is on you. You need to show up in every single aspect of the game, or else you will be criticized. That's what comes with the being at that point or having that talent, right? Yeah. That responsibility falls onto your shoulders. The fact that I think, could we have maybe somebody else shoulder some of the other stuff with Pulisic if he's not like the Captain America, you know? Could there be like maybe this is what he takes one half of this leadership role and then somebody else steps up and takes the other half of the leadership role?
I think McKenzie's been a way better player for the national team than Pulisic has.
Yeah.
So you're right. There's a lot of pressure put on him when the national team still has a lot of questions to answer. Who the hell is going to be our forward?
Folarin Balogun just had to
he pulled out. Yeah.
So we got way more important questions than worry about Pulisic. Like we still don't have that score. The U.S. has been known for having great center forwards. Eric Wijnaldum,
right?
Dempsey. We've had a lot of great number 9s. Now we don't have no 9.
Right.
I think our strongest part of the U.S. national team might be our back line.
The
midfield, I would say, the midfield
and back line are it's the center forward. I mean, Balogun was supposed to be the guy. Pepe has been, injury prone. He had a pretty good season with PSV before the injury, but the number 9 questions are there. But I think as a whole, there needs to be like maybe a division of responsibilities to where somebody else needs to be taking up that grittiness, because there needs to be grittiness. I watched the Nations League, and it was hard to watch because they were just like so.
Let me tell you this: look at South America; they all have that guy. James Rodriguez for Colombia, Messi for Argentina, Suarez for Uruguay, Neymar for Brazil. Even those guys, they're not the biggest in stature. They're still that guy. Messi, look at Messi playing in an MLS match versus the Philadelphia Union. Get off of me. Yeah. Getting mad at guys, getting in their face. And you're telling me this is the best player of all time, or possibly the best player of all time, has the perfect off the pitch kind of, look to him where he's not intimidating at all. He does the Lay's commercials. He does, beer commercials. He does everything. He's the superstar, right? He's the David Beckham. But he still gets in your face. Yeah. And Pulisic, you're not even 1/10 of what Messi is off the pitch, and you're telling me you can't be that guy either.
Yeah, but even Messi had to take a step back for a little bit too. It was 2016. He took that short, brief, step back from the national team to kind of, deal with all that pressure and the scrutiny. And they lost, was the Copa America that year?
Yeah, we lost everything.
So I think that. I do agree there needs to be an uptick in intensity, specifically from Pulisic. But it's a bad timing. I think it's very bad timing with the Gold Cup, with everything. If you take out all the context behind it, him not playing in the Gold Cup, you're like, okay, man, what's going on here? But there's certain other factors that I think play into the decision, and I don't know. I just get exhausted.
Your first tournament with Pochettino and you're not going to play? Come on.
I don't think you can force it either, though, because if he forces it to try to be that guy and it's not in him, it's just going to look corny. It's going to be more criticism coming his way.
We've been forcing it. This is why I hate when this came out, calling him the LeBron James of soccer. It was a meme that actually was detrimental to him, in my opinion.
I don't know.
It was I thought it was more funny than anything, but I don't think did anybody take that seriously, though?
But he's expected to be the Messi of the United States, and now that meme is so big that even casuals who don't watch soccer expect him to be playing. And when they put on Channel 2, because they've been promoting Pulisic's gonna play in the Gold Cup, and then they put on Channel 2 and they hear, wait, why isn't he playing? Oh, because he's on vacation. Are you serious though?
Yeah,
his girl got a good golf game though.
Yeah,
it does.
We'll see if you date a superstar, you have to be a good boyfriend, So I get it too. I get the human part of it, but I also get the you're a national icon part of it too. So
yeah, I think that both things can be true though. I think that he might not be 100% to play in this tournament, and he might need to focus on some lingering injuries, and that this break is warranted, but he also needs to step up in terms of his commitment to the national team for when he is playing, because I do think that there is something to say about the badge doesn't mean as much as it used to mean for these players, because they're playing in Champions League or they're playing in some of these big big teams and then in big stages, and then when you come back to the U.S. and you're playing, in these smaller stadiums with less kind of pomp and circumstance, then maybe it feels like a step down. So I think that the badge should mean everything to these international players that have the opportunity to play for these teams. But at the same time, I want to protect their guys and make sure that they're healthy for tournaments
So let me leave you guys with this, and we can change topic after this. But what was the last game the USMNT played in?
The last game that
it was a loss against
who?
Against Panama.
Panama.
And what competition are you playing in the Gold Cup?
Yeah.
So do they warrant a break?
He might warrant a break because he's not healthy enough to play.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what I'm saying.
So lie to me then. Tell me that he has a hamstring injury and he can't play.
Yeah.
And that's where I think they need to protect his image a little bit more.
Yeah.
Personally, if Messi came out and said I didn't want to play, no, Messi, you hurt your ankle. Let's show a little picture of his ankle, and then he's out.
Yeah.
So maybe on the media side of things, he didn't handle that as well as he should have.
I think the federation now they have to work now. We're gonna have to get good friendly games going to that World Cup.
Right.
I don't want to see the U.S. playing freaking a small
Uzbekistan.
Yeah.
No offense to Uzbekistan.
But like we want to see you play against a Colombia, against Italy. Give me big teams, because get us ready for that World Cup. Let me know what product we're gonna send out there.
For sure.
The last thing we're gonna think about is a tournament with our B team that we're probably not gonna win, because Mexico is not backing off. They see the blood and they're going for it. So.
Yeah. I think for sure the run up to 2026 is going to be another exhausting conversation where we're going to have to be, probably talking about this stuff again. But moving forward from the U.S. Soccer, I know we've kind of gone back and forth on a lot of things, but you brought something up earlier that I think a tweet you had about Carlos Vela's retirement and asking if he was part of the MLS Mount Rushmore. You referenced that earlier. Kind of, it took off in U.S. soccer circles where people were debating it. Does he deserve to be one of the four faces of MLS? First off, before we get into that, let's talk about Carlos Vela's impact on MLS, on LAFC specifically, what he brought to the team as their first EP signing. Because I think that when he was announced, it was a very, very big deal, and he talk about players living up to expectations. He lived up to those. So let's first talk about Vela, and then we can get into our Mount Rushmores.
Yeah, look, with Vela, I want to say this about his whole retirement. It was a beautiful post. It was a beautiful thing. The city of LA was all together on it. I saw countless story repost of that video, right? So it was something that everybody was talking about. But I thought they could have handled it a little bit better. Personally, if he knew this was coming, I think they should have signed him for maybe U.S. Open Cup games this year or something where he could get a true send-off. Because the last time he came on, I think he was a sub, and they lost that game, if I'm not mistaken. And it was like this is possibly his last game, right? So, and then the rumors came and everything. Or even, I get it, it's a Club World Cup game, you couldn't do anything, but bring him on at halftime, say hi to the fans, give him a thank you, a tribute video. I felt like this is just a little too ragtag for a player of his caliber.
I also think that it's possible that he didn't care about any of that stuff. We made a joke. We made jokes about his work-life balance being very, very, very he's the platonic ideal of work-life balance, where he very much enjoys himself off the field and he still gets his job done on the field. So to me, it might there might be a chance that he was like, you know what, I don't really care about all that. I'm gonna draw this out and send a memo to the team, and then we can figure it out midway or
knowing Vela, he probably just LAFC didn't find out about what was happening until he posted it.
Right.
Vela is the type of guy that he doesn't care what nobody else thinks, and he's done it from his career. He's probably the most talented Mexican player ever that never wanted to play for the Mexican national team. Off of one thing that pissed him off. He's like, you know what, guys, I'm done. I'm done with you guys. I was watching a pod, the Mexican coach for that, was it 2014 World Cup when they lost against Netherlands? Yeah. He was talking about how he wished he would have had him for that World Cup, because he was like, no, I don't want to be part of the World Cup. Then 3 months later, they have a friendly against Netherlands. They win 2-1. Who scored both goals? Vela. Yeah. So but Vela Vela was a superstar that never wanted to be a superstar. A guy that they asked him about soccer, he wanted to talk basketball.
Yeah.
Like this guy, he's like, yeah, I get paid to play. I'm lucky enough to be good. Like, but I'd rather be home.
Yeah.
Now, I know that we just passed this, but doesn't that sound awfully similar? Are we getting to that point, you know?
Yeah.
But I think Pulisic wants to be the star, though.
When he's on the field, I would say. He's pretty selfish when it comes to playing, personally. I've noticed that as of lately, when the moment happens, he really wants the moment, and it just sometimes that doesn't happen. But, yeah, I mean, is this a CONCACAF problem? You know?
No,
like,
Vela, the thing with Vela is, like, he was just so good that, like, he wasn't a superstar because he wanted to be a superstar. He was just so damn good that big moments he was showing up. That chip first El Tráfico against LA Galaxy.
Yeah.
Right.
Curl, like, he had a hat trick. Even though Zlatan, like, overshadowed that, but like,
But there's literally a call. Sorry to cut you off. Vela, 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 Vela. Like if I say that, we all know exactly that moment. So that player is just insane in talent. It's just across the board. I was about to say, man, if LAFC doesn't want to throw him a tribute thing, I think San Jose would. You know, like with that goal. You know, so it's just like
that was nasty.
It's just like,
the handling of the player retirement, you could go like two ways. I mean, like to put in NBA terms, right? Like Kobe had the whole farewell ceremony, and then Tim Duncan, I think, retired the year after, and he had zero like fanfare to that. So there's two ways you can go about it, and it just depends on the player that you are, and I think that if Vela really wanted to do like the whole thing where like he would play for the season, play for half the year, and have the tributes and the retirement videos and getting gifts from other players, he would have done that for sure. This is like a player like him retires on their own terms.
Yes.
They're not out here 42 like grinding in like the trying to make a roster like for the love of the game. Like that's if he wanted to do that, he would do it. Like, but this is somebody who can retire whenever he wants because he's a player of that caliber.
It reminds me of that one quote that Draymond Green had. You ain't Kobe.
Right, yeah. They don't love you like that.
But this is Kobe for LA, though. Yeah. This is El Rey. So it's odd to not see it, you know?
Yeah.
No, but shout out to LAFC because they made him an ambassador.
So he's still on board
even
with
though
the team, right.
even though like since his last contract, it was flirting with, we're still in talks with Vela, and then he gets signed for one game. And then this year, beginning of the year, is like, we still have high hopes that we can get a resolution with Vela. Retires.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
This guy does everything how he wants to do everything. And like, even when like he won the Golden Boot, he didn't care about it. Like he was like, cool.
I'm
chilling. Like, thank you. My teammates gave me the ball in the right spots.
Yeah. And I mean that season, 2019 season, like just just electric stuff. I think from the beginning of this season, like it was clear that this is going to be another because I mean the expectations were pretty high for him already. He had really good moments going into that in the debut season, but that year I think he really just took off and like. I don't know, man. Like it was incredibly fun to watch from start to finish, and the way he was scoring, the way he was distributing, like all the stuff that he was doing for that team, and to lead him to a record-breaking season, like that was one of the best seasons in MLS history. So.
Vela is your favorite player's favorite player.
Yeah.
Just looking at Griezmann post something on Instagram saying, "Thank you, hermano." Like Sergio Canales was saying, "Hey, pleasure to share." And different players, even we forget that he was in that scoring race with Messi and Cristiano one time in La Liga.
Right.
He was third.
Right.
So like it's like he's always been that guy that could be a star, but he just never wanted it.
The parallels between him and Griezmann and seeing where Griezmann went and seeing where he went, it's always like a what if, but also it's like, what? The guy did it how he wanted to do it. Like this is exactly what he wanted. Come to LA, you're in Los Angeles, like you're playing still, high level soccer. He made a World Cup, another World Cup with the national team, and so he did things the way he wanted to, and I respect that. So.
Was it 2018, 19 where there was a rumor that Barcelona was looking for this guy, and he said no. Like he's like, nah, I'm chilling in LA, yo.
Yeah.
Barcelona came calling. He was like, I'd rather be in LA.
Yeah.
It's funny to think about, and this is a little bit off topic, but I wanted to kind of bring it up. With him retiring and Giroud and Lloris coming, does it seem like, man, you brought up Griezmann. Did this LAFC French Revolution fail because Vela retired now, or is it still possible?
Well, I think this is my speculation. I think he retired because the whole rumor was like he wanted to come back with Griezmann to play.
Yeah.
LAFC couldn't get it done. So decided to sign, was it another year somewhere else?
Yeah, Griezmann with Atletico, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he signed again.
He resigned.
So he was like, how many more vacations? 'Cause all Vela does now is Instagram with his family. Like he's like,
family man, you know, like,
family man.
like
Good
that.
thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
But like since he failed, he's like, all right, I'm not gonna wait another 2 years and not have no real games under my belt. So I'd just rather retire.
Right.
But Griezmann, like that rumor has been going for 4 years now, and I'm already over it.
I know.
Like you either coming or not, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, whether or not it's a failure or not, I don't know if you can call it a failure. I think it would have been a triumph if they brought him and they were able to kind of build something with that.
Yeah.
Especially with the way he's played for Atletico. Like he was he was a key.
Pogba
key
was in
figure.
the stadium like 2 weeks,
That's
3,
right. Pogba
4
too.
weeks ago.
Yeah. There was teasings about.
Wait. Today's June 1st?
Yeah.
Pogba.
Is he officially reinstated?
Yeah, I mean, the transfer window opened for MLS for the Club World Cup teams today.
Sure.
And since they won the Club World Cup game, hey, who knows? Maybe
They got $10 million to spend.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, man, that would be wild. That's another guy who I think kind of got the short end of a stick because he was one of my favorite players to watch. And, you know, the way his career ended was hard. Or not ended, but the last few years have panned out has been definitely
But he can do that 1 month signing, which
that would
he can basically just show like, hey, I still got it.
Right. It'll be like an audition.
The weirdest part about the Vela thing, too, is he was like 3 or 4 days before they had a transfer window opening where he could sign.
Yeah.
So it's like right now they could have signed him.
Yeah.
So it's like it just doesn't make sense to me. But I guess if you're saying, you know, he likes playing, you know, soccer with his kids now. He likes watching basketball games, you know.
Something about Vela, I think, is like a lot of people try to like overthink and like what they do. Like I think Vela's more like, I just did it.
Sure.
Like,
Right.
You just can't overthink Vela's actions. I think
he just sends a text to the graphic designer, hey, make this real quick. Doesn't even tell anybody.
hey, forget about the talks about the contract. I'm retiring, bro.
I'm not gonna be there.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so going to the Mount Rushmore? Does he fit in your Mount? You asked the question. Is he on your MLS Mount Rushmore?
I would put him there in terms of his season that he had was the best season we're ever gonna see, even from a Ballon d'Or winner that was coming off of that, couldn't replicate it. It has to be put in the upper echelon of MLS moments and MLS seasons, and definitely has to be up there, in my opinion. So I'm going to put Carlos Vela on my MLS Mount Rushmore just because of that season. But even not that season, LAFC is what it is today in terms of valuation, in terms of a powerhouse in the league, in terms of people staying up to watch games late. He has to be somewhere out of those four because you can't say West Coast and MLS without LAFC today.
Sure. Yeah.
What is that Rushmore looking like for you though?
Yeah.
Besides Vela, who else do you have there?
Yeah, you got to find a Galaxy guy on there, and in my opinion, it's either one of the three. You know, it's Beckham, Keane, or Donovan, and it can go either way there. Personally,
You don't think it would be Beckham and Donovan together on that?
Yeah, so it's like, do you put stats, do you put trophies, or do you put, like, in MLS, we have to think about something else different. Who put MLS on the map, right?
Yeah.
Beckham.
And I hate to say it, but Messi has to be there too, right?
So this is this is where it gets interesting because I think that when I was thinking about, you know, preparing for this, I was thinking, you know, does Messi deserve a spot on the Mount Rushmore? And I think that while he brought a countless amount of eyes to the league, he did what Beckham did in 2007 when he came to the league, where it's like, okay, he brought international credibility. He's, you know, you go to Barcelona and you see all types of pink jerseys in the stalls. Like there's certainly a significance to Messi coming to the league, and maybe in 5 years, if he re-signs, maybe he earns that spot. It just has, like, what he did was done with Beckham in the past. So I think that it diminishes that part of the impact he's had in the league overall. If you want to look at this, and it's a silly thing to look at.
Yeah,
you know
Beckham,
what I mean? But
Beckham won.
And
Eventually,
Beckham ended up winning. So I think right now, as of this moment, if you had to put choose Beckham or Messi in that Mount Rushmore influence spot.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah,
like
yeah.
so you can put you can put one guy for the stats, one guy for the influence, one guy for whatever longevity, or one guy. You can put like different categories for each one, or you could just pick the 4 most influential or best whatever players of all time. I do think Beckham has to be on that list. I think Landon Donovan has to as well.
Yeah.
The MVP award is literally named after him. So I think those 2 guys are the no-brainers, and then the last 2, there's stuff up for debate whether you want to pick Robbie Keane or Wondolowski or Vela, Messi, whatever the last 2 I think are debatable. Giovinco, but the first 2 it has to be. It literally you can't. There's no other players.
What's wild to me. Sorry to cut you off, but what's wild to me about this whole conversation is I grew up a San Jose Earthquakes fan, right? Yeah. I grew up watching Wondolowski miss that shot.
Right.
And to see people saying Wondolowski should be on the Mount Rushmore, I was like, whoa, where did this come from? Like all of a sudden we like Wondolowski? Why isn't the Golden Boot called the Wondolowski Golden Boot yet? What's going on? It's funny to think people throw Wondolowski's name out there, and I was like, wait, what?
Time heals all wounds,
exactly.
And I think that moment, while devastating, you zoom out and you look at his career, pretty solid.
Isn't he a top scorer in MLS or on top?
No, he's number one.
He's
by
number
a lot.
one. Yeah,
by a lot too.
Yeah,
and Kai Kamara is 40 away, if I'm not mistaken.
And he just signed to another team.
Exactly.
You could be Kai Kamara might be.
Exactly.
No, he played for half the teams in the league.
Honestly, I was counting them out like, dude, it's most of the teams.
Look, if we made a Mount Rushmore for just MLS guys, MLS guys, and then kept the world-class guys out of it, Wondolowski would definitely be number 1 on there, and then we could throw Kamara on there too, right? So it's funny because it's almost like 2 leagues, but you can't do that in about Rushmore. But it's almost like in the Gold Cup, it's an A team and a B team.
It's hard to do for MLS because it's so strange. Yeah. It's such a strange league where you get all types of players, and a guy like a Nathan Ordaz is lining up with Lionel Messi. You know what I mean? It's insane to think about all these different players from completely different walks of life and completely different backgrounds and upbringings and a guy who went to college right for 4 years like a Jeremy Abobasi, you know what I mean? Is still in a professional league where you had a guy who was in a professional system since they were 7 years old. You know what I mean? It is. And that's what makes MLS so interesting to me, and such a unique experience of watching the league. And people talk down on the league or denigrate the league all they want. To me, it's incredibly special and funny, and it's fun to make fun of. Everything that MLS comes with is just so enjoyable to me, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it should get a lot more fanfare than it does in the normal sports media realm in the United States. But yeah, no, it's totally a blast because, like you were saying, Ordaz, put some respect on the next Mexico. No, I was kidding.
I meant that in a good way. I'm
not lying though, Nathan. Since we had him in the pod, shy kid. Now you see him on interviews coming into his own.
Yeah, he was a little nervous.
His presence is Nathan's a special player.
Very much so.
To win that starting spot over Giroud,
well, it shows you that when you get the moment after going to college or signing with the academy when he was 13, if I'm not mistaken. When the first academy were,
he was one of the first
ones. It just shows that sometimes if you give the kids a second opportunity, or maybe not the best opportunity. For example, for La Masia getting kids at 7 years old, Ordaz came in at 13, and he's still finding a way to make that pipeline happen and work. Mm-hmm. So in MLS, it's one of the only leagues where you have so many different pipelines, and you see the final product on the pitch, right. and you see these people come to stardom from a different pipeline, so it's pretty cool. Like for example, Wondolowski went to Chico State,
D2 legend,
right? Yeah. And then eventually San Jose traded to Houston, and then San Jose moved and then traded back to San Jose.
Right.
It's almost you never get that in an NBA. Basically, I mean, you could get it with.
And there's Ramen play NAIA.
I guess.
Pippen too. But
I guess
it's few and far between because of how like the league is flawed.
Right.
For all of its flaws and like to me, it's like you can't compare it to the top, like, the European leagues. You have to appreciate it for what it is. Is it the best soccer that you're going to watch in the world? No, but there's going to be incredible moments. Like
last night was good soccer. I didn't look at this and think, no, I'm watching subpar soccer. I saw America's outside back, I'm not sure his name, cross the field, and then Zendejas like put the ball right on his foot.
Saw that.
And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's insane. And if you're a normal U.S. sports fan, you're not going to know the difference.
Right.
And so that's why this whole talk about MLS not being up to par or CONCACAF not being the best and European soccer is way better, if you're trying to get a casual, it's the same thing.
Dude, it's still the fact that it's not the greatest, it doesn't take away from the fact that it could be entertaining.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people watch, like millions of people watch college football.
Right.
Is that the greatest
exactly.
like football product in the world? No, it's not. But it's exciting and it's fun and people have traditions and there's stuff that goes with the fans. Like
exactly.
All that stuff with MLS is comparable. And so
we say this and then we see Galaxy last man kick the ball up in the air. For a Chucky goal. Yeah. We have those type of games where
Maya Yoshida's like a European player too.
Yeah. We had those games where we had like if people see MLS soccer and they see that the last man, I forget his name. Forget his name. Yeah. The Colombian guy. The one that kicked the ball back. He was trying to clear it, kick it back, then
for the Galaxy?
Yeah, for the Galaxy.
No, it was Maya Yoshida for the Japanese international.
I thought it was the other guy. But
no, yeah.
But you see that and people are like, that's why people make fun of MLS. Yeah. Because that mistake is like, well,
I would actually say that this is the part where it's like kind of like a two-edged sword, in my opinion, or two-edged blade, where you get so many eyes on MLS that a mistake like that gets amplified. But if that happens versus, Ligue 1 with Nantes versus Monaco, no one's going to know about it.
That stuff happens. Yeah. That stuff happens across, like, keepers have, howlers all the time, you know what I mean? And all levels of the sport. So the fact that MLS already has that stigma of not being as good, an MLS keeper, letting a ball go through his legs is going to look way worse than if it was a Premier League goalkeeper, and maybe that team would have, they would still, hurl as many insults, but it's like they wouldn't make fun of the EPL for that. They would make fun of the player for that, Yeah. Whereas if a player makes a bad move, it's MLS's fault. Right. So I think, there definitely is like that kind of bias or confirmation. But I don't know what the psychological term for it, but like it is, you're seeing what you want to see.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, look, we went pretty long. We could still go through some more stuff, but I think before we wrap things up, I want to get, because I know we said that we want to get like your background a little bit. So
we had so much fun.
I know. We were getting kind of carried away with the whole Pulisic, Vela, like all this stuff, which was we could have the conversation like this forever. But what I want to get really quick your background, because I think having talked to you, like you have a very interesting story like coming up. So talk about like how you got into soccer, your background growing up here in the U.S. and how like you came to love the game.
Yeah. Look, I think all of us have a story here with basically we fell in love with the game, growing up in, a basically first generation household or second generation household. And, the love of soccer is something that is, generational. So I grew up watching, waking up at 2 a.m, watching the World Cups with my family, watching Uruguay win Copa Americas. And I always had this love and passion for the sport. And when I thought, as a kid, one day I want to be a journalist or one day I want to be a soccer reporter, I kind of never really realized that nobody around me liked soccer. So I kind of had to always have to sell soccer to them. So the way kind of my angle is in the soccer space, I'm always coming at it thinking nobody knows this. So let's try to get them to be interested in this. And that's kind of how my career has taken off in terms of trying to explain to the casual or to the American sports fan that this is interesting and this is something that we should look for. So that's I would say that's kind of what's really nice about my path and my career is I've always been able to be true to myself in terms of trying to get the American sports fan to like soccer. So I've been very blessed. But yeah, I mean, never thought that writing was my forte, or never thought that, this would be something I would do. I mean, I failed English class, so in high school. So going back and talking to my high school teachers and be like, "Oh no way, you're a writer now," is kind of surreal, right? So
in English, you're writing in English.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. No. In Spanish. I just talk in memes. That's what we do nowadays. Yeah, it's interesting. It's humbling when you get to experience a game like last night, where it's a great moment. I'm just sitting there talking to Nathan Ordaz and thinking, man, I never would have thought this 20 years ago, So it's interesting to think and put it all in perspective. But yeah, I mean, I grew up and watching soccer, and then I went to Cal State East Bay for marketing, though. So I never really went into this sphere. And then with that marketing background and with the idea that we need to get more fans in the United States, I've been very passionate about growing the game. And that's what's really led me here to Urban Pitch, because you guys are doing a great job with things on the West Coast. So and now nationally. So I'm interested and excited.
Yeah, we're happy to have you on. We're excited to have you on, and the timing lined up to where we brought you on and we were able to have you in person on the podcast. But be on the lookout for more Favian stuff on the site. We're gonna have him on the podcast possibly in the future, doing some segments. We got some really interesting stuff and exciting stuff coming up. So stay tuned for that. And once again, thank you.
No, thank you guys. Yeah, it was a pleasure. It was an honor.
Yeah. This has been another episode of the Urban Pitch Podcast, A Beautiful Game of Life. For Julio Monterosa, Favian Renkel, I'm Ramsey Abushala. We'll see you next week.